Hi, welcome to The Sacred Journey. The Sacred Journey is the program that reminds you life is a wonderful adventure. Each and every experience we have is a unique and perfect opportunity for learning. I'm Joyce St. Germain, and my guest today is perfect when we talk about an opportunity for learning with every experience we have. You may have remembered my friend Linda Beers. She's a violinist and a teacher, and to say both of those is kind of an understatement. But we teased you last time she was on and told you about something she had in the works. So this is Inspiration for Violinists. This is Linda Beers. Linda, these are amazing. Tell us a little bit about them. And I've been watching you post a different one every day. I knew they'd be good, but I am blown away with how relevant they are even to a non-violinist like me.
Yes. Well, I have them organized into 8 different stacks. I kind of came up with 8 different themes. We've got like cards that are specifically about violin skills. There are cards about musicianship. There are cards about practicing, healthy body, things like you'd call spirituality or meditation, inspiration, challenging times, and then there are a couple of cards that are kind of standalone cards that maybe don't fall into a specific category. So if you'd like, I can demonstrate some of those cards to show our audience.
Yeah, and let's remind people your background. You're a violin teacher privately and in public school. You also now play for the Hartford Symphony Orchestra, but I know you've played in other very prestigious orchestras also, such as...
Well, before I moved to Connecticut, I lived in Boston, and I played in the Boston Lyric Opera Orchestra, and I played a lot in the Boston Classical Orchestra, and I was a substitute in orchestras like the Boston Ballet. And I've also played recitals for concert series, things like that.
Okay. So we know you are the real deal, as we say. Okay, show us how these work.
All right. Well, if you're a violin student or a professional violinist, you might look at some of the, I call them technique cards. So for instance, this one has a kind of a drawing of a violin fingerboard. And I included the 4 cardinal directions because there's a little bit of shamanism kind of baked into these as well.
You did the artwork.
I did the artwork.
And the writing.
Yes.
And you and I met through yoga and shamanism. So you're a pretty well-rounded human being, if I do say so myself, which is, I think, why these are so fantastic and well-rounded and in some ways deep and in some ways simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started out, I just noticed one day when I was teaching a few years back that I tended to say some of the same things to my students all the time, and it occurred to me, why not write them down? So I kept a little notebook, and over about a 5-year period of time, I wrote down what I call these nuggets of wisdom, and that's what turned into the texts that are on the cards. So these are actual things that I've, said to students along the way.
And these are on your box. It says for 12 and up, but you can adapt them for younger students.
Yes, yeah. So if you're a parent and you have a younger child under 12 who's taking violin lessons, if there's some themes that you think are either your child wouldn't understand them or not quite appropriate, you can pull those cards. And I would recommend saving them for later, because when your child's a little bit older, then you might want to use those cards.
Okay.
And I just want to point out also the design on the back of the card, in case people haven't noticed, that is a Violin F Hole, which is like the cutout in the front of the card, in the front of the violin, the top, where the sound comes out, and it's to kind of signal to look inside the violin, to look inside yourself. Because, playing music is more than just moving fingers and hands. I think we all know it comes from someplace much deeper inside of you. But because the violin is a very technical instrument, sometimes you can get caught up in the technique and feel like you're stuck and you've lost that musical energy. And so part of the function of the cards is to help you maintain that connection.
So the violinist or the instrumentalist is
Yes.
not just a violinist. They are
Yeah.
a human being with a lot of components and
Yes.
aspects.
Yes, yeah. So, you know, if we move on and maybe look at this next stack, which has to do with musicianship, one of the kind of card deck favorites is this one. It's of a string quartet, basically playing like a ring around the rosy game. That's called a circle game. And if you've ever known a string quartet, which I've known many, the idea of them playing that kind of game is kind of hilarious.
When you see them with their tuxes
Yes,
on.
exactly, exactly. But it's exactly kind of emotionally what they go through in a group, that they have to be able to listen to each other. So this card is about not only hearing yourself in the music, but being able to hear other people and letting their sound come through your sound. So that's an example of a musicianship card.
So these cards make great self-guided things for the children too, or adults who play, so that if they don't have a teacher right there, they can...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they can be used for that. Absolutely. So a big issue for music students is practicing. It's something that we all, you know, seem to struggle with from time to time. And I have a few cards that address that. One of them, this is actually near and dear to our hearts, is Downward Facing Dog. And I put this in the deck just to remind people to warm up before you play your instrument, because playing music is very physical, and just like doing sports or doing yoga, you wouldn't ever start out just right in like a heavy-duty physical activity. You would warm up. You would do something to get ready for it. So that's important when you're practicing too.
You have to share the lizard one.
Okay.
I'm very curious
All right.
about that one.
Yeah. So this has to do with memorization, and I call it your lizard brain, or I've heard other people call it your lizard brain, your old brain. Practicing, and if you're struggling with memorization, if you're, you know, some of our music's very long, that we have pieces that are like more than a half hour long that violinists, you know, might want to memorize. And if you're struggling with that, you'd want to practice it enough. You'd want to repeat a phrase enough times so that it just gets into your lizard brain. So that's why he's here.
Yeah, and some of my viewers may know it as the reptilian brain.
Okay.
Okay.
That works for me also.
Yeah, it's the primal part of
Yes,
it. Okay.
yeah. And then we have healthy body. And, you know, these things are all related. So I have them separated into 8 categories, but there's a lot of overlap. So this is another favorite. I just wrote about this very recently in my blog.
Tell us a little bit about the blog.
Okay. So here is, I have a logo for it.
And we'll give everybody your contact info at the end.
So I have the Soundpost blog. And the Soundpost is actually this dowel stick that's inside the violin. Every stringed instrument has it. And it's actually responsible for the beautiful sound that comes out of your instrument. It's like the heart of the violin. And the thing about it is that if it moves just like 1/8 of an inch, it will completely change the way your instrument sounds. And it's not permanently attached. It's not glued in or nailed in. It's just set in.
And the top and bottom kind of put
hold
pressure
it in
on
place.
it to
Yes.
hold it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is kind of a play on words. You know, it's a post, the sound post. Violinists get it. So.
Okay. Now we do too.
Yeah. Now you do too. And anyway, every week I write about a different card. So far I've gone through the whole deck, and this year I'm just kind of like randomly pulling a card. Or if there's something going on in the news, or if there's something going on with a colleague that I think is relevant, then I'll write about that particular card. So this was a recent one that I just I didn't pull this randomly. I chose it because I was playing a concert, and after the concert I fell down, and I fell down pretty hard on my knee, and I had to go to the doctor. And I was feeling like it's easy just to kind of go along with whatever the medical profession says about, how your body is doing, and you might be feeling something different from that.
Right.
So my recent blog post was about advocating for your health when you're dealing with healthcare providers. So, I think just want to do the best for you, but you need to speak up.
Yeah.
So,
And that's applicable to anyone
exactly.
in any circumstance.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next stack has to do with, I would say, like inspiration, also musicianship, and meditation. And this card, Flow.
Just sort of the inner landscape of who
Yes.
we are.
Yeah, exactly. And jazz musicians in particular are really familiar with this word flow. But I mean, we all know what it is. But for instance, if you go to hear a jazz musician perform, you'll notice they do a lot of improvising. They're just kind of making things up in the moment, and it almost seems like they're in a trance. And in fact, that's probably pretty much what the situation is. And this is something that everybody can experience. And so it's just a reminder that I think the improvisatory aspect of playing jazz, I think lends itself well to going into flow, because it's just really allowing the musical energy to flow through you. So it's an example of that kind of card. And then this is the actual, I have cheerleaders, and I also call this inspiration. It's a reminder that your friends and family hopefully will always be there to cheer you on. And if you have something big coming up, like an audition or a concert or whatever it is, if you're not a musician, if you have like a big interview coming up, maybe get your cheerleaders on board, make sure they know what's going on, and have them support you.
Good advice.
Yeah. This next group of cards has to do with challenging times, and it's positive, but very often in life we do go through times where we're feeling stuck, or there's something going on that we're haven't settled yet. And for instance, this card has to do with the source of perfectionism. And in classical music, we really have like a very high standard of playing everything accurately, and you might say perfectly. And there really is no perfect. And I have yet another card in the same group that has to do with the beauty of imperfection. And here it is. It actually has some jewels on it. And both are just a reminder that, the beauty really is in the imperfection. That we really do love you for you're just yourself.
And needing to know where to adjust
where to
you're
put
holding
the card.
Yes. And Chris doing our filming with a thumbs up, thumbs down, a little higher, a little low,
trying
a little
to get
left,
in the right
a little low, and not to take ourselves too seriously.
Yes.
So the last couple of years, we have had to embrace our imperfections, because
Yes.
boy, have they come to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So very timely.
Yeah, and then this last stack of cards, these are kind of random ones. I have one this is another shamanism one. It's horse spirit, honoring the spirit of horse, because there are actually a lot of horse products that go into the production of violins and bows. And the most probably familiar one to people would be the bow, that it has bow hair from the horse's tail. And one thing that I've learned from you through shamanism is that when you are kind of reusing an aspect of an animal's body, that you can honor it, maybe have some of its medicine. And
This is horse.
yeah.
So this carries the medicine, the spirit, the energy of personal power, and we honor it. And I know you honor it in the horsehair and the bow, and
Yes.
other products too. But
Mhm.
yeah, I completely understand. So that's a nice
Yeah.
tie into shamanism.
Yeah. And
So it's keeping the spirit of it alive.
Yeah, and
honoring it.
just bringing to a violinist's attention that when you speak your truth, when you play with passion, you are also honoring the spirit of horse.
Beautiful.
So, some other things in this stack. I have a service card, just a reminder to share your music with, maybe people in nursing homes or veterans, maybe somebody in a hospital. And we have a card that's really taken on a new meaning more recently. It has a man in a powdered wig, and so a lot of our really famous composers from the past, like Bach and Beethoven, not necessarily Beethoven, but definitely Bach, Mozart, you see them with powdered wigs. And the question when I made these cards was, how old do you sound? Like how do you reconcile the fact that you are a 21st century violinist playing music that was written hundreds of years ago? But we can also add to that, something like ethnicity. There are a lot of different dimensions to this card to be considered, I think. So I think it's timely. And then this is your moonshot. Practice. So I completed these cards in 2019, and that was the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. And my father actually did a little work on that mission. And so
Did not know that. Wow.
So I'm kind of also honoring him with this card.
And I watched it. I remember you.
I did too.
Oh, I was going
Yeah,
to
I
say
saw
you
it.
might have been too young.
Yeah.
But yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for the non-musician, I have a deck that you gifted me with. I know that there is relevance in every card for the musician and non-musician, and this one kind of poked out like it wanted to come out, and I am sure our viewers don't know this, but my mom was a professional violinist and had her own orchestra at age 13, composed music, and then I say sadly she stopped playing and went into a different career path, but many years later, I bet she hadn't touched a violin in 50 years, and she picked one up and brought tears to my eyes with it. It was just ingrained, I think, in her. And I had not so positive experience in 3rd grade or 4th grade when I tried to play. Wasn't for me.
Okay.
Yet, right?
That's right.
Create drama in your bowing, not so much in your personal life. Be aware of how you move in space around you.
Yes.
So I asked, what could I benefit from? How would you interpret something like that for me?
Well, I'll start out just discussing what it's meaning for a violinist. I have a student, or had a student a while back, who referred to it as bow drama when a violinist did a big sweeping bow stroke. And we do move in space when we play our instruments. The bow is aerodynamic, and it's just something to think about. Sometimes people do things like that and they don't necessarily realize that they're doing it, and if they saw a video of themselves, they might think, oh, I didn't realize that I was moving in that way, and maybe that's a little bit of a distraction.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a good thing to be that individual if it's a distraction, because you're not the only person in an orchestra, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
it really
get it.
depends on the situation and what you're trying to accomplish. I think the violinist my student was watching was Serena Huang playing the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, and in that case, it was wonderful to see her do that. She's an amazing violinist, and it was very exciting. But as you pointed out, if you're sitting in an orchestra, you might not want to be doing that kind of thing. But you do want the drama in your music, and it's possible to have the drama in your music and then still be aware of how you're using space.
Okay.
So I would say, maybe it is for the non-musician kind of an awareness card, like how you're moving in space, how much you're aware of how you personally are impacting, the area around you. I mean, we hear a lot environmentally these days how we're impacting our environment. We might not always be aware of things that we're doing.
Perfect interpretation. Not sure how much time we have left. Oh, we have 3 minutes left. What do you want to be sure that our viewers know and understand and get this as inspiration? Speak about parents, speak about teachers, speak about groups, anything you want to share that maybe you haven't shared yet.
Sure, I would like to talk a little bit about how to use the cards. It's really, a very personal thing, but I would recommend shuffling them. And you can either draw one, every time you take out your violin, just pick out one randomly. If there's something that you have a particular issue you're dealing with, you could search for a card that kind of matches up with that. If you're a teacher and you're teaching a lesson, you might find that there's a time during the lesson where the student isn't necessarily feeling like they're moving forward, or you haven't found a way of teaching that is kind of keeping the student engaged. That might be a good time to say, okay, well, let's take out the card deck and pick a card and see what comes out of this, and maybe that will give us some ideas about how to proceed. Also, if you have a favorite card, like this card is one of my favorites. Actually, they're all my favorites. Violinists, we have these ribbons where our bows are in the case, and you can actually, violinists all know, you can put a picture there. So you could put your favorite card in your bow ribbon.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And as a former teacher, I'm still a teacher, but former school teacher in art, there are times that you want to work with just a little group, and the others you want them to kind of be on their own, or the other way around. You want to be with the big group and have one or two on their own. I could see having them use these, and I got the cheerleader cards.
Yay.
So yeah, so that's cool. And those were my high school colors, and I was a cheerleader.
Wow.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, I did not know that.
So we're going to have you on. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have you on for another show of introduction to the violin.
Yes.
And I think that's it's overdue for that, and it's not just for people who play or who are committed to playing or have made plans to play, but it's an invitation to everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Going to see how much more time we have. I think we're probably getting near the end. We are. So Linda, thank you. Every time I look at these cards, I notice one that I hadn't noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
I love following you on your Facebook post, and I have not, because I don't know how to do blogs. I haven't yet looked at your blog, but you said they kind of are the same card that you speak about on
Yes,
the blog?
yes.
All right. I will start learning how to blog. Maybe you can coach me. Maybe there's
Absolutely.
a card for that, about how to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for coming and
Thank
sharing
you.
your wisdom, your gifts, your multi-skills, and we'll see you next time, so don't go anywhere.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us on this sacred journey. We'll catch you next time.
The water's warm at Jaws Pond, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pond, conveniently located on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.